Big story that we're tracking at this hour, where the recent developments in Zimbabwe have raised concerns around the world. Now, the international community has called for dialogue and peaceful resolution to the conflict that is unfolding in the country. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has appealed for calm and restraint in Zimbabwe after the military seized power.
You're right that the developments are a little bit confusing right now, and we're trying to get the details on this. The Secretary General has been monitoring the evolving situation in Zimbabwe. He appeals for calm, non-violence, and restraint. Preservation of fundamental rights, including freedom of speech and assembly, is of vital importance. The Secretary General stresses the importance of resolving political differences through peaceful means and dialogue, and in line with the country's constitution. In this context, he notes the efforts of the Southern African Development Community.
Now, the European Union has also expressed concerns over the developments and has called on all relevant players to hold talks to end the political instability in the country.
I've seen the recent developments and the spillover, including in relation to the country's security forces. It is a matter of concern for the EU. We are following very closely what is happening on the ground, underlining that the fundamental rights of all the citizens need to be respected and the constitutional order and democratic governance to be upheld. We call on all the relevant players to move from confrontation to dialogue with the aim to a peaceful resolution.
Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's military has also told the regional leaders that its move to seize power from President Robert Mugabe was not a coup and should not be considered as a coup. But the head of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mehmet, hoped that the crisis will be resolved within a legal framework.
Effectivement, cette question s'est développée alors que j'étais en voyage pour Washington. Nous avons suivi de très près l'évolution. Les militaires ont affirmé qu'il ne s'agit pas d'un coup d'État. Et vous savez, au niveau de l'Union africaine, nous sommes contre tout changement anticonstitutionnel. Ça, c'est un principe.
At the ripe old age of 93, Robert Mugabe is the world's oldest head of state who's still in office, and he's been the president of Zimbabwe, formerly known as Rhodesia, since at least 1987 onwards. Now, his critics say that he has presided over a failing economy and widespread corruption as a result of his dictatorial rule.
Robert Gabriel Mugabe was not always a dictator. In his early days, he was a freedom fighter seeking an end to white minority rule which had marginalized the majority black population. When white rule ended in April 1980, Mugabe became the first prime minister. 7 years later, he became president and has remained so until now. His current status is not clear. Some would say controversy is his middle name. He ruthlessly crushed a revolt by the ethnic Ndebele people in 1982. 20,000 people were reportedly killed by a brigade trained by the North Koreans. In 2000, he launched land reforms, seizing land held by white farmers. The land was redistributed to poor black farmers. More controversial was the gradual concentration of power in his hands. He turned on political rivals, presided over a failing economy, and in recent months tried to lay the ground for his wife to succeed him. He was last in India 2 years ago. At a meeting with Narendra Modi, he nearly fell, underscoring the fact that age was taking its toll on the former guerrilla. The Indian connection is strong. He has been here 7 times. He's remembered as the last of the post-colonial African leaders. The late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi attended Zimbabwe's independence celebrations in 1980. He was honoured with the Jawaharlal Nehru Award in 1989. The African continent is known for rulers who hang on to power long past their prime. Mugabe is one among them. He began well, driven, it would seem, over the injustice meted out by the whites to the blacks. But somewhere down the line, he became like the whites he had fought, intent on preserving his own power and privilege. Bureau Report, WION.